All right, welcome back to the Diggie A2 podcast. This is episode 9. This is all about Public Enemy, and I gotta say it one time, Flavor Flav. Yeah, boy, I'm ready to go. I'm decked out. I'm amped up, ready to go, man. Once again, thank you all for all your showing your love and support. Everything that we do is for the people, and we always have a lot of fun doing what we do, and that is talking about hip hop in the 80s for season 1, and we are just about halfway through the season talking about all of the pioneers that started everything in regards to what we talk about in everything in the beginning of hip hop, the essence of hip hop. I got on two of my homeboys coming back again. We got AJ P Dub, we got Frank K Dog back again talking about for this episode. So K Dog, it's been a little bit, brother. How you been doing, man? We ain't seen you on the show in a while, bro. You been doing all right?
Yeah. Hey, I'm trying to get back on the show. I'm trying to catch up with Boyd. You've been on like 11
I know, man. Boyd got the record, man. He got on six times, man. So we got to boot him off a little bit, man. You know, so but yeah, this episode we're focusing on Public Enemy, Chuck D, Terminator X, SW1s, Flavor Flav. You talk about it. They are influencing hip hop tremendously, and I want to talk about what they did in regards to the impact of what they're doing in hip hop, and that's what we're going to focus on for this episode. So gentlemen, we're just going to jump right into it, man. I don't see any reason for us to cut the red tape or anything. I just want to just dive into it. So I'm going to pass the mic over to AJ P Dub. Let's talk about, AJ, the impact of Public Enemy in that era of hip hop. So they came out with Bum Rush the Show, which ironically, when I was going back and listening to Bum Rush the Show this week, it kind of sounded like kind of like a generic version of Paul's Boutique is what I the first thing I thought about on listening to that was like, man, this is like a watered down Paul's Boutique. Kind of thing. It seems like they didn't know how to produce the album, like, because Beastie Boys, shout out to Beastie Boys, right? Go back and watch the tape on Beastie Boys. But they just took up so much of the sampling, so much of the sound. It's kind of like it was left over. So Bum Rush the Show didn't do too well. And then they had It Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back, which is a groundbreaking album. So let's start with that, AJ. So what is their impact in regards to the golden era of hip hop?
Okay, I believe that Public Enemy's overall impact on hip-hop was that they were radical, revolutionary, and made songs that discussed issues affecting the Black communities, government-driven, and major topics that affected the United States. That is their impact, and that's what they did. Both, we're talking about the albums in the 80s. We're talking about Yo Bum Rush the Show, and It Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back. So I'll start with, let me clear the air on something.
Yeah.
So I got two things.
You're good.
One is, I misquote on the Beastie Boys episode. I know I cleaned it up in the comments, but Public Enemy opened up for the Beastie Boys on the License to Ill tour and not Run DMC. So I just want to clear that
gotcha.
up. I misquote,
Noted.
And from that concert, that's what really turned me like a fan of Public Enemy. I heard a couple songs, but when I seen them in concert, I was like, they are solid. And so one thing about Yo Bum Rush the Show, it came out literally no airtime whatsoever. You didn't hear it on radio stations. Wasn't much of any videos of it or anything like that. I believe that album is legendary. And although they only showcased like maybe one or two songs that voice a message directly, I'd say they wanted to make sure the music was heard. The most impactful song on that album, I believe, is My Uzi Weighs a Ton. And I'm not sure if there's any interviews out there where if Chuck D was asked what that song means, but listen to the lyrics and reading the lyrics, I believe his Uzi was meaning his voice.
Right.
And his voice weighs a ton. And from that day forward, when that album came out, that's exactly how he projected himself. A strong voice, and one needed to be heard. And that's what he did. He is, I'll say this, Chuck D is the most powerful voice in hip hop.
That's bold. That's a bold statement. That's a bold statement.
And I also have another bold statement, but I'll save it for later.
All right, we're going to come back to it later. Frank K Dog, we're going to pass the mic to you, sir. We're talking about Public Enemy and their impact in the golden era of hip hop. So you mentioned this yourself when you were on a few weeks back. talking about so much music coming out in 88, 89. So how did Public Enemy fit into that era as well? How did they create their own lane? Now, mind you, they weren't talking about some of the same things in their, as a contemporaries in the same era. They were talking about something totally different. So how do they fit in regards to the golden era?
Hey, great opening, great opening question. So I went back real quick and I looked in the last 3 years of the 80s, 87, 88, 89. So 87, there were 34 hip hop albums released that year. 88, it jumped up to 66.
Wow.
And in 89, there was 85 hip hop albums released that year.
Wow.
So this is 87 on, it was catching steam. And I'm going to piggyback on AJ when you talk about Chuck D's voice real quick. I do believe that as well. Like to me, Public Enemy they were like a Run DMC, but with on the political view.
Right.
So when I say Chuck D's voice is so powerful, not, it wasn't as loud and boisterous as others, but like when he rapped, man, like he came with that anger that, like all the things that were going on in the 80s, these black youth, living, coming from Long Island and stuff, they were going through stuff. And He said, look, here, I'm going to empower our people. And what is really, so what drew me to Public Enemy originally, when you talk about Yo Bum Rush the Show, when you look at the album cover, right, they're in the basement, right, and they got one little light, real dim, and Professor Griff's over there, and he's got his red beret on. Like, they getting ready to go to war, and Flavor Flav is like, he's got his hands, like, I don't know if he's reaching for the album or whatever, but it's like he's like blessing it, and I was like, wait, who are these guys? So that made me, get about the tape. And but yeah, they're all about their whole thing is going against the politics. Questioning the media. Even back then, they were like, wait a minute, the media was doing some crazy stuff. And these guys were even so bold. They even had one of their songs.
Don't believe the hype.
No, not that one. Is when they went after the rap industry about people sampling and violations in the codes in the rap game. And I'm like, this is when they were first coming out. Yeah. So that I was like, wow, these guys are like, and just Chuck D when he rapped, man, he just like he brought the anger. You felt a sense of urgency when he spoke, right? Yeah. So, and you said it earlier, they like before Public Enemy got on, there was no other group like that. And I really don't think to this day there's been another group out there that have brought the same message. There have been bits and pieces like, Ice Cube and America's Most Wanted album, talk about poverty and the drugs. But there's never been a group for, 30, 40 years that have like, well, yeah, even now that look, sound, act, send the same message that Public Enemy does. So.
Yeah, and I agree with both of your points. So one of the accolades that I saw fascinating was Public Enemy is one of only 7 hip hop acts to be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, right? So that goes to their body of work. And from a lot of the things that I was reading, throughout the days coming up to today's taping, was a lot of people consider their body of work, their collection of albums, to be one of the best collection of albums in hip hop history, which was their first 3 albums. Their catalog in a sense is one of the best, top notch, because of they were like talking about social issues, racial inequality, all the same things that we're going through right now in 2020, they were talking about in 1988. It's just crazy, how they not only forecasted what was gonna happen for, I'm not gonna say for the black man, but for the person of color that is, doesn't get the same opportunities as everyone else. But they talked about this in 88. Like, who was talking about that in 88 in regards to hip hop? Public Enemy was. And that's why I think they would fit in so well in today's structure of hip hop, because they were already talking about it, right? So, I mean, then to go to both of your points, you know, I'm going to pass the mic back to AJ in a second, but, you know, with that voice, Chuck D, his voice is so powerful, man. Like, he's definitely a guy that commands your attention, you know, and I don't think he was the best in regards to a wordsmith, but he grabs your attention. He demands your attention when he's rhyming. So I'm passing the mic back over to AJ, and AJ, if you could just elaborate a little bit more on like the presence of Chuck D has a presence unlike any other MC that I've ever even heard of, you know, in the past. So like, how does that contrast with Chuck D's presence, you know, his rhyme skills? Like I mentioned, I think there were better MCs that we've had in the 80s, but Chuck D was a presence. He wasn't, you know, he was telling it like it is, straight from the, you know, straight from his point of view, and he was talking about topics that people were not ready to talk about in 1988. So how does that come about more, AJ? More in regards to his presence, and not only what his ability to articulate himself, which he's articulated himself very, very well, but also talk about in conjunction with the issues he was talking about.
So I would point it out like this. You know, they came out as a group and not as an individual. You know, they had Chuck D as, you know, the voice, you know, the Uzi.
Right.
Then you had Flavor Flav, who was a hype man, you know. There you go, Flavor Flav on the hype tip. so then you had the S1Ws in the back. And so they came with a certain strength in their message. They said, this is how we're doing it, you know. But he was the front runner of that group, had the voice. He had the strong voice, not the way, even though the way it sounded was strong, but the way he came across with his message. He didn't have to be, like you said, the best rhyme flow, but he made his lyrics work for each song. And then with Terminator X in there in the background, mixing it up and everything, every song on It Takes a Nation of Millions, Hold Us Back, would just ring in your ear. You know, the lyrics, the sound, just whatever. And that goes on to my next bold statement.
Let's hear it. Let's hear it.
Here it goes. It Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back is one of my top 3 albums of all time. So it stands next to License to Ill. I told you that was my number 1.
Okay.
Nirvana, Nevermind, and It Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back.
Woo!
That is how strong that album is. And that came out in 89. And since then, that's always been on my top tier albums. And then it bounced around, but that is one of my top 3 of all genres. And that's why I wore the Nirvana shirt, because Kurt Cobain actually said in an interview that It Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back is also one of his top 50 favorite albums.
Ooh, Frank, how are you gonna follow that up, man? Like he dropped the bomb on us, dog. Like I don't know how to even come back from that. He said the Millions is top 3 of all time across all genres. That's a pretty bold statement, dog. So, but I do remember you, Frank, mentioning that this was also in your top 5, or I want to say it was in your top albums as well, too. So you're in agreement, but in a different perspective. So let's
top for me. This was top 5 of all time hip hop. I don't get into the Nirvana and stuff, but it really was deep. And you think too, like when you talked about the first album and the it did the first album, like the way it was produced by the Bomb Squad, the chaos, like what's really going on. But when they got to that second album, though, you know, and they sped up the tempo, everything, they brought in the horns, man. Like just all the crazy, you know, the Rebel Without a Pause, the whole song. He's got that little mosquito. I mean, it's just crazy. It just pulls you in. And I think of all hip hop albums out there, man, I got a top 5. I have it 4 on my list. So,
man, that's pretty powerful, you guys. And of course, I grew up in a different era, so I am appreciative of hip hop. I wouldn't put it rank it as so high, but just for me, you know, listening to it throughout this week, man, there's some bangers on there, man. It's funky, it's political. And then you got Flavor Flav. So let's talk about Flavor Flav for a second, right? So we used to think that Flavor Flav was like the hype man, and he don't really know how to rhyme. But AJ, I want to pass the mic to you on this one first. So how did Flavor Flav balance out Public Enemy? So let's talk about some very, very hard-hitting topics. Then you got Flavor Flav, kind of like the guy that's like lightening up the mood a little bit, you know what I mean, having fun, dancing, you know what I mean. But do you think there's a hidden agenda on that? Is that just straight? Is that smart marketing, or is it just some guy just having fun? Like, and now mind you, now Flavor Flav is the originator of Public Enemy, so he founded Public Enemy and put the group together. So let's start with that as a cornerstone first. But he kind of took a different path as opposed to you want to be having fun, hanging out in the background, you know what I mean, doing his thing, and then he let Chuck D do all the hard stuff, but he's in the back being entertainment. So is there a method to that madness, AJ? So what's your take on that?
I think it definitely is a method, because like we talked about Chuck D's voice, how powerful it is, how it sounds and everything. And then every now and then you get that Flavor Flav, whatever, lyric. He'd have a couple songs.
Yeah.
But he always had those little 1-2 punch shots and everything to bring, I guess, the normalcy of a crowd into it. Maybe the party crowd, because to get across different genres, different populations and stuff like that, I think that was Flavor's job.
Yeah.
And to lighten it down a little bit, but also come with a like a powerful screech or something like that. And it worked for the group, and I think that's what Flavor Flav's piece came into that.
Yeah, I would agree. And I'm passing the mic to you, Frank. Same question. Flavor Flav, Public Enemy. What was his? He was the hype man, right? So Flavor Flav brought the party to it, but they were talking about some very serious issues. Going back to it takes a nation of millions to hold us back. A 5-mic album from the source, by the way. I forgot to mention that. So a classic album from the hip hop community. But I mean, I went back and it's some really, really funky, dope tracks on there, man. Like, and they're talking about some, one of my favorites, Night of the Living Bass Heads. Or he talking about bass, like it's dope, man. But then you got Flav in it. So go back and watch the video, you guys. So go back and watch the video. You see Flav in there acting the fool with the lady at the, what is it, Frank, at the newscaster, right? He's like bugging out on the newscaster thing, right? I'm like, but he brought that balance, right? So let's talk about that balance, Frank. Like, what did Flavor Flav bring to the group, man?
So I look at you, Rob, as more of the Chuck D. You're all serious sometimes. Like growing up, I was a fool, man. So I love, man.
Wait, hold on. Flavor Flav horn hat on now. Yeah. You want to retract that statement, brother?
Oh, yeah.
You know what time it is, baby. You know what time it is. I mean, I'm just.
I used to, when he came out with look, when he came out with Straight Up on the Columbo Tip, I used to say that all the time. I didn't even know what he was talking about, but I was like, "That's my boy." But I think, so I think he did balance it well when you bring in those messages, and like I said, they were deep, and so I think Flavor was there to maybe lighten everybody up a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, hey, I think back in that time they had okay, we all know Sanford and Son, right?
Right.
And then there was another show, All in the Family with Archie Bunker, white dude.
Yeah.
Like these straight racist, right? Some of the things they said on Sanford and Son was like racist, and so those messages may have been not those messages, but the messages that are deep like that were being delivered by Chuck D. And then here goes Flavor on the side, just kind of maybe lighten, maybe lighten it up a little bit.
Yeah.
Maybe take some of those feelings off, and and they did, and they balanced out well, because then, like I said, you had the S1Ws in the back dancing and stuff. So I think all of them, all of those three different entities together, man, just made the group, much more acceptable to, all the people.
Yeah.
And I think one of the biggest impact that I found from that album and PE as a whole is that they teach people something.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why I appreciated the group.
No question. And for me, getting the final word on this, I got on the Black Panther shirt. I don't know if y'all can see this, and I'm going to move the microphone. I got on King T'Challa here because my first exposure to me, Public Enemy was my version of the Black Panthers, right? Because they had the SW1s, they had Chuck D, and they were so much about oppressing the power and, all the things about the government, trying to hold us down. And they were my version of the Black Panthers, like straight up. Like I didn't grow up in the Black Panther era, but if I could compare one entity that I was growing up and seeing as an image, it was Public Enemy, right? So I'm paying homage to them with my Black Panther shirt on, and I'm decked out because I want to pay homage to them. But also, in today's time, especially with things that are going on today, you guys, their music translates into 2020 easily, not even missing a beat, I would say, almost, especially when it comes to Night of Living Bass Heads from that album, from Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back. So fans, if you all are a hip-hop historian, if you're a fan of hip-hop, go back, do your due diligence, go back and listen to that album front to back. It's funky, it's got a message, it's good. But however, having said all of that, gentlemen, we gotta wrap things up, man. All right, so I really do want to thank you both for spending time on a Sunday, hanging out with me and your boy for one more episode. I mean, this is crazy from where this idea started to where we're 9 episodes into the season, man. I'm so excited and so blessed to have my boys come on here with me, man. But we got to start closing out the show. I'm going to pass the mic to Frank, a.k.a. K-Dog, my boy. And who are you shouting out this week, my boy?
Nobody this week. Just me. Hey, look, feel like Tupac out there. It's been me against the world, man. Look, these last couple weeks. So I'm gonna tell my wife 24 years, man. Like we've been through it. So we don't know we see eye to eye, but you know what? We're battling everybody and trying to do right. Trying to take care of a lot of people. So I ain't shouting out nobody this week.
No shout outs. Hey, that's all right, man. Hey, that's all good, man. It's all good. It be like that. Hey, it be like that sometimes, right? Nobody gets no shine. That's how it is, right? That's how it is. AJ, and pass the mic to you, sir. Who are you shouting out for this week?
Obviously, you for making this happen.
Salute, man. Salute you, dude.
Keeping this going.
Make me look bad. Thanks, AJ.
Oh, yeah.
You missed the mark on that, right?
Yeah, Francois, I'll shout out to you. Yeah. Okay. Other than that, really nobody. Just we're talking about Public Enemy, and they actually have a new song out.
Yep. They do.
State of the Union, and it's a typical Public Enemy song, and I think I like it. I like it. So, shout out to Public Enemy. And, real quick, Chuck D was actually on Mike D's Echo Chamber show, which is on Apple Music, Beats One Radio. He was on there live today. I was listening to it before we started the recording.
No doubt.
And it was pretty dope. And real quick, that he was saying that Rick Rubin did not want to put Bring the Noise and Rebel Without a Pause on that album because they're already out as singles. And so Chuck D said a single will die on 12-inch vinyl, but will live forever when it gets on a cassette.
Absolutely.
And so they wanted it to get on the cassette, so it'll live forever. Meaning that it'll be on the actual album and so on and so forth, and not just a single. That I just want to add that, and that's it.
No question. Bring the Noise, dope ass track too, man, from Bum Rush the Show. Yeah, dope ass track. But my shout outs are also short as well. Shout out to my sister-in-law, Jenny, who is begging me to get a shout out on the show. So I'm shouting out Jenny, I'm shouting out her husband Curtis, my nieces and nephews, Sophia or Sophie, Junior, and Anna Lee. I love you both. So I hope to see you guys soon in a couple of weeks when I make the trip down there to Texas and show you guys some love. And shout out to my family, my Army family again. I cannot do this alone, you guys. I don't know how many YouTubers out there saying they're doing this by themselves. That's BS, because you need a team that supports you. And I support, shout out to Frank, shout out to AJ, shout out to everybody that's around me, pushing this platform forward. But I want to appreciate you guys one more time. I had so much fun doing this, man. man. And it's just fun just bugging out with you guys, man. Listening to you before we tape and having a good time and things like that, man. But we got to wrap things up, man. Next week is going to be me and my brother doing a showcase for Houdini. Get your notes ready for that, you guys. And we'll see you all again, man. All right. Shout out to you guys. Shout out to hip hop. All right. 100. We'll see you guys soon.
Make the beat.